This is the Phoenix mind, where the fire refines, break the chains and rise to shine. Rise stronger, lead with heart, every end a brand new start. With Lisa Manzo, we transform, we ignite. This is the Phoenix mind.
Hi, welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Mind podcast. I'm Lisa Manzo, your host, and today my special guest is Dawn Jackson. I'm going to read you her bio so you can learn all about her. Dawn Jackson, an RN, registered nurse for you guys that don't know what an RN is an advanced grief recovery method specialist and best-selling author who draws on more than 30 years of nursing experience to help individuals heal, transform, and rediscover joy. Through her compassionate work, Dawn guides others from surviving to thriving, empowering them to embrace wellness in mind, body, and spirit. She is the author of Journey to Peace and Healing and Journey to Self-Discovery, 100 Days of Soulful Reflections. Her work has been featured in Aspire magazine, on tut.com, and several international best-selling anthologies, and on numerous podcasts. Welcome, Dawn. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm honored to be here and speak with you and your audience today.
Well, that's so interesting. 30 years of nursing and you gave it up. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Let's just start there. And so you went from more than 30 years of nursing and now you do, tell us what you do and why you made the switch.
Okay. So about 10 years ago, I did some training to become a grief recovery method specialist. And this came after doing a lot of my own personal growth and healing over the years. I grew up in an alcoholic family. My dad and my stepdad were both alcoholics. I had an abusive relationship as a teenager, and then I ended up divorced at 30. And so, I had a good job as a nurse, but what I was noticing is there were so many unhealed parts of me from things that had happened earlier in my life. And so, I found seminars to go to, workshops, I read books. And while they took the edge off, I still couldn't find that joy. Like I felt something was wrong with me. And so I went to this training to become a grief recovery specialist. And I didn't realize how much it was going to shift my life. I came to the understanding that grief wasn't just about death, it was about any type of loss or transition in our life. And so as I looked back on my childhood, it became very apparent that I was grieving over so many things that I wished had been better, different, or more. And so after I became a specialist, I worked on my own grief. And then I started noticing that my job as a nurse, I was seeing so many of my patients suffering from physical health issues after experiencing some loss or transition. And so I thought, I can help people in a different way, but I can't do it in my nursing job because obviously we have rules about what we can and can't do with our patients. And at that point, I was working in primary care. And so I decided that, despite the fact that I always was taught have the good job and the benefits and everything, I knew that there was more for my life. I knew that I had this gift to help individuals in a different way, and it was time to jump into that. And yes, it was scary. It was very scary. But it was interesting because as soon as I put in my notice, I felt this weight lift off of me. And that was my sign that I knew I was taking the right step forward.
Isn't that so interesting how like when you walk away from something and then this like big huge wave of relief comes away from you? And I know what that feels like. So I'm an LPN, so I'm not an RN. And I was going to school to become an RN, and there was just too much going on in my life at the time, and I had to push that off my plate. Like that had to come off my plate. And as soon as it came off my plate, I'm like, oh, that's not my path.
Yep. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to keep moving forward with something that doesn't feel right. And when we can step back and release it, it's like we're free again. And that's exactly how I felt. And that was interesting because the first 3 months after I quit My partner was like, you need to just take time for you. I slept a lot. I would sleep till like 10 a.m. I was so exhausted. My soul was tired.
Yeah.
And then I started doing things like hiking and backpacking. And then at one point, I felt like I was me again. I was recharged, I was grounded, and I could move forward with what I wanted to do and how I wanted to help people. But I had to first practice self-care.
So tell me more about the grief recovery method. I've never heard of it.
So, the grief recovery method was developed over 40 years ago by John James. He was a Vietnam veteran and he lost his son. His son was 3 days old when he passed. And he was trying to figure out how he could heal his heart because he was experiencing so much emotional pain. And he tried talking to people and he tried reading books, but nothing seemed to really work. And so he thought, well, I'm a smart guy. Let me figure this out. And so he developed this method to help himself heal that emotional pain so he could move forward. And that didn't mean that he wouldn't feel sadness or miss his son, but he wasn't carrying that significant pain that wasn't allowing him to live a regular life. So once people saw this change in him, they said, well, what did you do? And so he started sharing it with others and finally realized that he needed to figure out a way to help the whole world. So he wrote a book and then he thought, well, I want to get this work out to the most amount of grievers in the shortest amount of time. And so we started training people to be specialists like I am and to help people. And we are on every continent but one now because we say the penguins don't need us. So we have specialists everywhere. And this has become an evidence-based tool to help people. It's a step-by-step approach that we go through with someone over typically about 7 weeks to take them through these different action steps to help them heal those things that feel incomplete, those things that are causing them the pain, to keep them stuck. We want people to thrive again. We want them to move forward in life.
So this doesn't just about the loss of a person. So like it could be the loss of like say you or the can it be the loss of like if you feeling not good enough or worthless? Does it heal that as well?
Yeah, we can work on like loss of health. We can work on loss of faith. We can work on all different types of losses. Moving, loss of a job, loss of a friendship. So many people think that, and I did too, that grief only comes after death, but that's not true. I mean, we have grieving moments from the time that we're a little child, when we get bullied on the playground, when someone says, you know, I don't like your haircut or something like that that hurts us. All those things that we stuff inside, they end up affecting our life as we move forward and navigate things. We act different because we've carried that pain inside. And as long as we keep it stuffed down, it's like that pressure cooker that's ready to explode when one more thing happens.
Wow, that's yeah. I know it's I was talking to somebody on recently and the person was talking to me about she didn't want to have children, but yet that decision was taken from her. Um and so now and then we had this whole conversation about it. It's like, oh, this decision was taken from you, but this is something you didn't really want anyway.
Well, there can be those conflicting feelings, and we talk about that in grief, right? I mean, she didn't think that she wanted it, but now she doesn't have a choice because it was taken from her. So those conflicting feelings are pretty normal. We also talk about those like when we lose a family member through death because they've been very ill, right? So we've watched them suffer. So there's parts of us that feel happy
Relief.
that
Relief.
they know don't have to suffer, but we also feel sad because we've lost our family member that we loved dearly, right?
Right.
So those conflicting feelings are very normal when we're talking about grief.
So when you have somebody, let's go talk about that when the family member's really sick and that you're taking care of them, they're in pain and they die, right? And then you can't, the person can be relieved that it's over,
Mhm.
right? But then yet you have the guilt from, oh my God, I'm not supposed to feel that way.
So I talk to people all the time about guilt. So the definition of guilt is an intent to harm. And most of us don't realize that. And
Oh,
so we
really?
say, yeah. So we often say, oh, I have so much guilt. Well, most of the time, you don't have an intent to harm somebody else, like 99.9% of the time, right? And so we can have a regret. We can feel sad. We can not know how to process the fact that, yes, we feel happy that they're no longer here suffering. But I just try to caution people with the word guilt because guilt is like used in a courtroom, right? You're guilty, like you had an intent to harm this individual. And most of the time, that is not how people navigate their life.
So what word would you give it then?
In this certain situation,
Yeah. In
yeah.
this, what word would you give it? Like, how would you describe it? Because to help somebody say, well, that saying they feel guilty, they're not guilty. So
Correct.
how else could we describe that?
I just I feel sad. I feel um
Okay,
yeah,
naming the actual feeling of what you're actually feeling
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
automatically going to the guilt and say, "Oh, I'm guilty." Well, you're just sad.
yeah,
You're
exactly. Yeah.
wow. So how did your divorce affect you? Because you wrote to me and you said that it really took a toll. Those aren't your words, those are mine.
No, and that would be accurate, actually, what you said. I went into my marriage with an unhealed heart because of stuff that had happened in my previous relationship in high school that was abusive. And I found a man that was really kind and loving and ended up marrying him. But I had so much turmoil inside of me. I had anger and I had pain and I didn't know how to process it. And so, because I didn't know how to process that, I didn't know how to navigate a relationship, a healthy relationship. And so at the age of 30, our son was 3.5 years old, and we ended up divorced. And I felt like my world was over. I didn't know how to move forward because I had built in my mind, the two-car garage and the white picket fence, and all of a sudden that was all gone. And so for a period of time, I was the victim. Well, my husband left me and I was really angry about it. And until I started doing my own work and realized that it was time for me to take ownership for how I came into that marriage and the fact that I wasn't healed. And I brought that in to our relationship because any unhealed parts of us, we bring into every aspect of our life and it affects how we interact with people. And so when I was finally able to do my own healing, I was actually able to go back to my ex-husband and say, I take ownership for this in our relationship and I apologize. And I didn't realize I didn't have the tools at that time to navigate this. But until I got to that point, I didn't see how I could be happy, how I could thrive. I was just kind of going through the motions of life.
Yeah, I remember that point in time where I was going through the motions in life, and every once in a while I feel like something will come up, and I'm like, "Oh, this is something I have to pay attention to. It's just an opportunity for me to heal this because I was like, I need to otherwise I'm not growing as a person." And was it painful?
It was very painful. And now, fast forward 24 years, and I've realized what a gift he gave me by leaving. And that was because I was a mom and I was a nurse and I was a wife, but I didn't know who I was. And by him leaving me, it gave me the opportunity to grow and to heal and to find myself. And so at this point in my life, I look back and I wouldn't have changed anything.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't change anything. I don't remember. I made it 9 years. That I know. I made it 9 years, and I wouldn't go back and change anything because I grew as far as I could with my husband, and we needed to do our own growing and our own healing. We were both very wounded people, and that had come together, and just weren't able to heal together. You know, and I didn't marry him for that reason. And I just, in hindsight, I look back, it's too bad we couldn't have healed together. Yet that wasn't our path. We had to split and go our separate ways in order to heal. And I wouldn't change anything from it. And it's so interesting how different people have different reactions to their marriage ending. Me, I was like, thank God. And you were like, you thought it was the worst thing that could have possibly happened to you, right? Is that
I
what you,
did for many years, until I, like I said, was able to work on my own emotional pain and heal my heart to the point that I could see it as a gift. And I mean, he's a dear friend in my life. I still care about him, and I see that like he did give me a gift. And he gave me the gift of leaving when I needed to heal. And he also gave me the gift of my son. So,
yeah.
I don't have any regrets.
So what made you realize that you were not a victim in your life, and what helped you grow out of it? Because I'm of the belief that everything that happens to us, we have some role in it,
Right.
if not
Oh,
the
I
whole
totally
thing.
agree. Yeah, well, I would say it all came to a head, and I realized, the piece of ownership and how I had such a big part when I started doing my work in grief recovery for myself,
Right.
because I looked at all these different relationships and I looked at the role that I played in them, and I was able to let go of a lot of the pain and the resentment. It's like I work with people and I tell them it's really important to do work on your current relationship. And people are like, well, I think my relationship's fine. Why do I need to do that? And it hasn't ended. And I'm like, because resentments build up. It's that one little fight you have. It's the one thing that your partner said that's hurting your heart. And then the next time you have a disagreement, you remember what they said previously in the last fight. It's all that buildup that just continues to create havoc in our relationships. So until we kind of wipe the slate clean, we're carrying that around. We're carrying that baggage.
Yeah, I remember, like attract like, and I always used to say my husband, God rest his soul, was the victim. But I was just right there with him the whole time. And I look back now and I laugh at myself, and because hindsight's 2020, and I'm like, oh, well, I see my role now.
Yeah, and I think it's a beautiful place to get to. I mean, I know people that, 20 years after their divorce, they're still very angry, and it affects their life in so many negative ways. I mean, in order to move on and have the experiences we want and to manifest our dreams, we need to be able to find a way to let go of all that pain and that resentment that we carry around
So
from
I have
all
a,
different
yeah,
situations in our life.
true. So let's talk about the importance of being authentic and real versus pretending to be strong when our hearts are hurting.
Mm, yes, that is so important because most of us were taught early on is we need to be strong and things will get better. Time's just going to heal this. But it doesn't. That's the thing. The more we keep inside, the more that pressure cooker is building up and ready to explode. It's important that we talk about the way that we feel with people that are safe, people who can listen without needing to give advice or, say, oh, well, I had this situation happen and, you know, you should do this or be critical. And so yeah, to find those people that we can just talk to, because so many times when we're grieving, we just need to be heard. That's like our first step
I
in taking
agree.
healing.
I agree. And the other thing is, you remember when you need to have that conversation, sometimes you may have to preface with the person and say, hey, listen, I'm not looking for any advice. I just need to vent this.
A
I
hundred
want it.
percent.
If I want advice, I'll ask for it, but I just need you to empathize with me at this point. I don't want your
Mhm.
sympathy. I want you to empathize with me and just let me vent it out so I can release it. I don't need advice here.
That's a great idea, Lisa, to do that because so many people, yeah, we do want to fix, right? Because we don't like to see the people that we love hurting. And so it's like, here, let's offer this advice. Let's tell you about what happened when we experienced something similar. But the thing is we don't ever know how somebody else feels because all of our relationships are unique.
Absolutely. Everything's so unique and it's like I wish in my 30s I had that tool. Hey, I just need to vent this. I don't I have it now because people were I would tell somebody and then they get giving me all this advice. I don't want your advice. And I didn't
Mhm.
even know how to say that. I know how to say it now because with age comes wisdom.
Oh, I would totally agree with that.
So is there a part of your story that you rarely get asked about, but you wish people would ask you more? I think you said something about leaving nursing for 30 years and how that was for you.
Yeah, it was interesting leaving nursing because while I usually talk about the fact that it was like the right thing to do as soon as I put in my notice and I left, I felt free. There was also a significant amount of grief behind it. So this is the conflicting feelings coming up again, right? Um, and because I had done so much of this grief recovery work, I was able to set myself up in a way that the grief was less impactful than I anticipated because there were certain things I did. I went around to everybody that was important to me in my job and I told them, look, I am leaving this job. I want you to know how much it's meant to me that I could work with you all these years. And so, I really had those connections with people so that I knew that there were no important words that were left unsaid when I left on my last day.
Oh, that sounds like a great plan to help somebody to move on from something. And then have you ever moved on from something and then was just so happy it was gone out of your life?
Well, with no grief, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Mhm.
Mm,
Just curious.
I would say no. I would say there's always a little bit of grief, but it's just maybe to a lesser degree
Uh-huh. I was just
because,
curious what your thoughts were about that.
yeah, there's some relationships that I'm glad that I was able to move on from, but there was still sadness because I wouldn't have never entered the relationship if there wasn't something there that was meaningful to me.
Right. So you don't have any unresolved feelings from leaving nursing of 30 years at this point, which is wonderful. Is that what
I
I'm
do
hearing?
not. I do not. I know in my heart that it was the right thing to do. I know that being a nurse was so instrumental in setting me up for what I do today, right? My work with individuals and because I focus not just on, emotional mental health, I also focus on how can we be well physically because they're all intertwined. So I don't have any regrets about my nursing career and I don't have any regrets about leaving. I feel like it was the right decision for me and I've been able to help people in a different way that I couldn't do previously.
I think that's awesome that you can do something for 30 years and then find something else you love to do and then move on and just go and do it. And it serves like because nursing serves people. And then in this way, you're serving people just in a different way.
Right. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, Dawn, I have two more questions for you. And when people want to learn more from you or discover more about you, how can they do that?
Well, they can find me on my website, which is dawnmichellejackson.com with one L. I'm also on Facebook. I have a couple pages on Facebook, and I also have a LinkedIn account, so people can follow me. I write quite a bit, so I put those things on social media. I have a blog on my website as well, where I usually write things about grief and, finding joy again, those types of topics.
Oh, I love that, finding joy on the other side. Because,
Yeah.
you said earlier before we finish, you said, it was painful to go to actually do the healing. And I want to talk about that for a minute before we end, because the other side of the pain is absolutely worth it as far as I'm concerned, because I
Yeah.
did the work, because I'm joyful, I'm happy, and for the first time in a really long time, I have joy and I can laugh. I laugh at myself, which is great. And I just want you to just speak a little bit to the fact that yes, it's not an easy thing to do, and yet how worth it you feel it is.
Oh, definitely. So, so many people don't want to do the healing because they don't want to look at these painful things that have happened to them. But it's looking at these, it's feeling the emotions that allows us to get to the other side, which is joy. I mean, for many years, I couldn't figure out, was something wrong with me? Like, why don't I feel happy? I have a really great life, even though, I'm divorced and I've been through some hard things. I had a good job, I had a good home, I had a great family and son, but I wasn't happy. I didn't feel that joy. And that's because there was so much that I was stuffing inside, stuffing down all these painful emotions because I didn't want to feel them because it was scary. Because I thought, well, if I feel these, things are going to get worse. No, actually, when I felt them and when I worked through them, things got better to the point where now I experience joy every single day. And it's in the little things. It's watching my Bernese mountain dog, playing, or just the smile on her face. It's just very simple things. And it means so much that my heart can experience that joy that previously was really elusive.
That's awesome. And so, what's one piece of advice if someone's struggling that you want to give them, and so to help them over their Phoenix moment?
My biggest number one piece of advice is to choose to be emotionally honest. And that's really hard, especially if we've been someone that has isolated and kept our feelings to ourselves for most of our life. But when we do that, it keeps us from the healing that we really deserve. So find someone who can be that, what I call a listening heart, someone who will just listen without giving advice or criticism or comparison, to be there for you and hold space as you talk about what is hurting your heart.
Well, Dawn, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you, Lisa. I loved having our conversation.
Thanks. And I'm Lisa Manzo, the host of the Phoenix Mind podcast, and I'll see you on the next episode.
This is the Phoenix Mind, where the fire finds. Together we rise, transform our lives.